Hi, it's Steve and Caleb with Brownells again, and today we want to talk about accuracy problems with your hunting rifle, which is very important before you go afield.
Yeah, and I know this is coming around during hunting season, but really it applies year-round, and a lot of the information we're about to give you can be applied to pretty much any bolt-action rifle for the most part. But it is indeed mainly geared towards hunting. So, yeah, let's dive right into it.
All right, so assuming you're going to go out and verify your zero at the range, and you go out there and suddenly you're not hitting where you used to hit.
Yeah. So the first
What's
thing,
the deal?
I like to look at is you. I know you don't like to hear that, but look at kind of how you're holding the rifle. And one of the biggest things, especially if you're just kind of not paying attention, you haven't been out shooting in a while, you throw your rifle down, you have it supported on something. Make sure it's supported on the stock, closer back preferably, and make sure you're not supporting it on the barrel. Because if you're actually resting just that barrel on a bag or something, that can throw off your accuracy big time.
Sure. But what if you're like 2 feet off?
If you're like
100 yards,
if you're 2 feet off at 100 yards, it's
something's bad wrong.
Something's bad wrong. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. And kind of the order of operations I like to go down is, make sure it's not something you're doing, which let's assume we've determined that. Then I kind of like to just move on to optics. I think from there, and that's kind of always the first place. Oh, my scope's done gone bad.
Right.
People kind of start there anyway.
Now, we know you brought your tools with you so you can tighten up all your fasteners or check them anyway.
Everyone always brings their tools with them.
Never forget that.
You never forgot your tools when you went to the range. But yeah, so check the torque on all your fasteners.
Right.
And then, also your base as well. So
yeah,
you may have to end up pulling your scope off your base, which if your gun's not shooting well, it doesn't matter anyway. It's not like you're...
Well, if you can reach up and wiggle your scope, something's loose.
Yeah, something's not right there.
Right.
So yeah, check the torque on all your screws and everything, including your base screws.
Right.
Also, I've seen, especially down in the South, depending on what kind of setup you have, you can develop some rust between your actual base and your action here. I guess I'll point on the side the camera's on.
If you were hunting in the rain last season, you can develop that anywhere. You don't have to be down south.
Yeah, that's true. Some moisture gets in there. That can rust over time, which will actually create a bad surface between the two, and it can just work itself loose.
Right. Or if you brought the gun in cold into the kitchen when somebody's cooking on the stove and you got all kinds of steam in the air.
Oh man.
Everything condenses and you will have rust galore.
I'm getting hungry just thinking. That hunting season gumbo, you know what I'm talking about. Man.
And while you're checking your scope screws, check your action screws too. Because if the gun is shooting all over the place, maybe it's not tight in the stock.
Yeah, which leads us to the next area, the stock. Oh, and the scope. You can see if the scope's bad by checking if it's tracking or not. Which is basically just by adjusting your turrets and make sure it's actually going where it says it's going as you move them. You can kind of watch and see that. So just make sure the scope's tracking as well. And so from there, let's talk about that stock.
Okay.
So action screws obviously are a big one. If your action screws work their way loose, there goes your accuracy. It's gone. So make sure that all you got to do is just torque down your front one, then torque down your back one again. Make sure they're good to go. But that's not the only issues you can run into with a stock.
No.
And you may or may not have seen this, but there's the old dollar bill test.
Right.
Where someone will take a dollar bill, slide it up the barrel here, and make sure they have clearance between the barrel and the stock. And there's a few exceptions, especially Rugers, but in most cases, you want the barrel floated from the stock. You don't want any contact points there. And if there is a contact point or a stress point, that could be the cause of your accuracy issue as well.
Right, if it's touching on one side or the other, it's going to throw you off because the barrel's going to vibrate and hit the stock there.
Yeah, so that can definitely do it. And sometimes even the old dollar bill test, isn't enough clearance because once you're resting your rifle on something, there's a little bit of flex in your handguard, your stock, your forend here.
Yeah.
I've been messing with ARs too much, Steve.
I know.
There's a little bit of flex there that can actually cause some contact. And another factor to put into...
There's more?
There's more. If you put a bipod on your stock,
Oh, yeah.
You've just attached an area to the front of your stock where all the weight's going to be bearing, and if your stock itself isn't properly bedded or it's just too flexible, then all the weight is actually going to be pushing down on it. So
right.
you can remedy that by actually changing the stock, removing the bipod, not using it, or bedding the stock, and that'll give it enough reinforcement there that it's not going to flex anymore.
Yeah.
And those are pretty much all the issues we see with stocks.
Bear in mind, not all bolt actions or rifles in general are meant to be free floated. You know, the older ones a lot of times weren't. If you have a pre-64 Model 70, it's not free floated.
Yeah, Ruger 77, I think, has a contact point in the stock. That's supposed to be there. And you actually see issues if you cut that out. So.
Right. And being there's a bearing point up there on a wooden stock, if your wood has swollen or contracted or whatever with the humidity, it'll change your point of impact.
Yeah, that's a big one we see too, and that's one of the main reasons it's good to bed a wood stock, because that layer of acroglass. Not saying you have to use acroglass, but you should be using acroglass. That'll actually create a sturdy area, especially if you full length bed it. That area of the stock's not going to flex because that acroglass is going to be holding it rock solid.
Plus it's sealed against moisture.
And it's sealed against moisture. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So if you're not bedding with acroglass, what are you doing with your life? This isn't an advertisement for acroglass. Anyways, let's move on. Let's move on. So yeah, that's all the issues with the stock.
Okay. And obviously it almost goes without saying that check your ammo again. Make sure it's the load you were shooting last time. You know, if you're a hand loader and you like to experiment and you grab the 130 grains instead of the 160 grains or something, you know.
Yep. Yeah, so definitely.
That's an easy fix.
Yeah, and if it's a new setup, try a few different loads.
Yeah.
Make sure, find one that your gun actually likes. Your gun may just not like a particular bullet weight with that particular twist barrel or, charge or something like that. And that could be throwing everything off. So I would say try factory ammunition first, because most guns will shoot factory ammunition okay regardless.
Yeah.
And you can just eliminate that variable completely before you start messing with hand loads and wasting a lot of time and money. So
in fact, some of the Hornady stuff, the Nosler stuff shoots better than my hand loads a lot of times.
Well, that's because Steve's hand loads. I'm just kidding. No, he's gonna slap me on camera one of these days, and y'all are all gonna witness it. But so let's move to the next part, which is going to be the actual barrel itself.
Oh, okay.
So a big thing we see, especially with your magnum calibers, like your 7 mag and stuff like that, it's copper fouling. Copper fouling will destroy your group sizes.
Yep, they'll gradually just open on up.
And the best way to fight that is to clean it good. Yep. Don't just you're not just going to run a few brush passes through there and then a few patches and be done with it. You've got to really get in there and clean it out.
Yeah.
So.
If your group's starting to open up a little bit, but it's sort of near your point of aim still, you just can't get it narrowed down, that may be fouling.
Yep. And that's oftentimes what we'll hear in the gunsmith shop is someone come in and say, I think my barrel shot out. And they have maybe 400 rounds total through that barrel. Yeah. It's not shot out. It's just not in the condition it should be in.
Right.
So, very few hunters are ever going to shoot their barrel out. It takes quite a bit to shoot the barrel out. But I'm not saying it's not possible. It's definitely possible, especially if you got a gun that's being passed down.
Yeah, but there's so much cooling time between shots, and
it's
not like you're shooting full auto or a high velocity a lot of time. If you got a 30-30 going through a lever action, the barrel's going to last forever if you don't mess it up somehow.
Yeah, it's the only real concern are your Magnum type, really fast moving bullets. But even then, it's super rare to see one of those shot out.
Yeah, 30-06, should last you a lifetime and your kid's a lifetime.
Yep. And barrel crown. That's another thing we can touch on. So the crown of the barrel is the muzzle end of the barrel. That's the area where the bullet actually exits. So if you've damaged that somehow during your cleaning process, or banged it up against something, a little dent or ding in that crown could destroy the accuracy.
Right.
Absolutely, just wreck it.
If it affects the bullet in a way that's consistent, it'll just shift your point of impact. But shoot a similar group, But if it's ripping off a piece of that bullet at random each time, they'll go all over the place.
Yeah, they'll sling wherever they want to go, and
that's an easy fix.
yeah, it's actually a really easy fix. You're going to have to recut it, but you know, if you don't feel comfortable doing it, any gunsmith can do it for you, and it's a pretty painless process.
But you can use one of the hand tools, and you don't have to take out very much. The damage doesn't go in very far.
Yeah, it's just right there on the surface. Just a few turns of a cutting tool, and you're good to go. You're fixed.
Yeah.
So.
But you know, a lot of rifles shoot well with a a dark bore. You know, like the old militaries and stuff. You can get decent groups out of them. If you got chamber damage, it's still, the accuracy still doesn't deteriorate a whole lot. It's just extraction. It gets to be a problem. Things like that.
Yeah, you still definitely get what we'll call hunting accuracy.
Yeah.
Which you know is different than your mile-long precision rifle shooter accuracy. So.
But if you're getting a bushel basket-sized group at 100 yards, usually something's loose.
Oh yeah.
Something is not bolted down properly.
Yeah, you should definitely be getting good. I'd say MOA accuracy in most
Or
rifles.
shake the gun and see if your scope has loose parts in it.
Yeah, you shouldn't. If you pick your gun up and you shake it, you shouldn't hear any rattling. You hear rattling, something's off there. So that's. I think we covered all the main, not every calls, but all the main accuracy issue type things, and this will give you a good idea of what to look for.
Yeah, and if you found something else, please leave a comment below. We'd like to hear from you.
Yep.
That's it for this time. We'll see you next year with another hunting prep video, I suppose.
I
you want to be
suppose
here?
so. Yeah, well, I should be here.
All right.
We'll
We'll
see.
see you then. Thanks again.